Recording, right. Welcome back again to our final session. So we're trying so diligently to complete this question, illustrating again what we were discussing before, that we cannot do all this work in the exam. And the last thing I was discussing was the syllabus coverage for the NPV area. And there are so many areas which has not been tested in these two sittings of December 14, June 2015, which has not shown up. And when we look at the syllabus, all those other areas, you need to have a working knowledge of everything so that whatever chose to show up in the exam, you can deal with it. And of course, with this methodology of not getting bogged down with calculation, but doing as much as you can. And we illustrated that with the options hedge, that instead of doing varied calculations to try and illustrate all the differences, you can write a wonderful essay explaining the concept behind the hedges and what could happen if you use a higher rate versus a lower rate, and just move on so that you get to a point of making a recommendation. Right, so I left you all before the last room bumped out asking about the tax treaties. Is there any that the question gave us? So are we going to now find tax on everything that we have here? Or what are we going to find tax on? Go on, there's some US tax, and somebody tell me the rate as well. Come on, scroll back up. You can find it. $20. Where did I need to find that 20? There is a treaty. She says 0, 65, 33, 0, first 2 years. Where's that 20 and the treaty? Below the units. Paragraph 2. So not up here, that's paragraph 1. Lower down, units. And right, there we go. The one up here is corp tax on profits at an annual rate 20% in US. Both tax US 11 payable in the year, and the tax treaty exists. Allowable depreciation, and move on. So they didn't tell us what is the details of the treaty. What will the treaty allow you to do? So they just said a tax treaty exists. No more tax. Well, that's a good point. So let us say that. That will help us. That will help us simplify some of our workings. So let's see. If there is a tax treaty which we are saying no more tax, which of our cash flows here will subject to tax already? So the royalty, the component costs, which is the two additional cash flows we have here, they were effectively tax deductibles here. So there were costs that were deducted, component costs, as well as the royalties. So where it is now represented as income, should we at least tax these two guys, if not taxing up here, which was already subject to tax, project cash flows, or leave out all of the tax entirely? If we say leave out all entirely, well, that would be the simplest working. We could choose to tax the additional income versus the income from the project itself. So what do we think? Let's have a vote. Are we going to tax nothing, or we're going to tax the items which are additional to project cash flows? All right, and it goes for the easier work, right? So the solution sheet does tax these other two, but we can very well make our assumption here because they did not give any details. Assuming no further tax in the US due to the treaty, tax treaty, right? So you state what you're doing, whether you keep this again in the main report under the other assumptions, whether you stick it in here if you forget it up there, not a problem. And you write what you're doing and you move on. So net cash flows. So here's where our numbers will go off a little bit from the kit answer, but that's fine. Cash flows, dollars, millions. So let's net off some values. Now that I have that, 4793 in the first year, all of these others. So if I have net cash flows and I want to find my NPV at a discount factor of 12%, which we decided before, discount rate 12%. This is where we can pick up our financial calculator and drop those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers into our financial calculator. This here will be OCF 0. Where's my calculator? So make sure and clear your calculator first. So as you put it on and you press the save button, then go second function clear. So it clears off all the cash flows. You have to press the save button first before you go second function clear. So the CF0, probably type that better. Let's say CF and small o. With the CF, don't want that. CF and small o. Right. Yeah, just press your 47.9.3, press your minus sign, press your enter, down arrow, and then this is our CO1. C01, C02. So you press down arrow twice because all of these singular cash flows have a frequency of only 1. So C01, you enter your 37.8. Press enter, down arrow twice. Pass in the F01 straight because it's already in at a value of 1. And then C02, 76.5, enter, down arrow twice, 355.9, enter, down arrow twice, 273.6, enter. You hit the NPY button, the I comes up, you press 12, hit enter, then compute, then down arrow and compute. And you will get what? Somebody give me a number that shows up. Come on, ladies. Almost done for the night. Beautiful. 202. That's exactly what I got. 202.1 if you have decimals on. So NPV 202. Oops. NPV equals 202 million. All right, positive. So that would basically say that you accept the project. Alrighty, it is. So once more, I think in the study school, definitely what I'll do some of the questions, I should do all the questions where we are not doing the detailed workings and we're doing what we can in real time for an exam. All right, so we need to practice that at some point. Where again, making a point that I was discussing with Anita in detail in last week's recording, that yes, while we love our maths, the maths is going to trick us into wasting time. And we have to complete each question. If they ask a report, they need to see a full report with an introduction, a body, a conclusion. Right? So you can make a conclusion based on guessed numbers. You can make a logical conclusion based on where you see the cash flows going. If you can line up the cash flows and see, even from here, that, let me go up to here, if we could see that the net values are looking like they're going to be a loss, right, from the first column. And the second column, you see, well, the sales values are that way much more. And if we just look at the units, what was one of the working with the units? The sales units are going from 150 to 480 to 730. So if in T1, the units of 150 allowed you to get this little loss, right, of 4.4, having not worked anything, but probably even shown, so having not worked any of these other numbers, and probably shown the unit somewhere up here, and saying that from 150 to, how much was it again, 480. So 4 times the amount of units being sold. Definitely you're looking at some sort of positive influence for the next 3 years. Or feeling that and you want to prove to yourself that the second year is going to work out to positive, well, fine, work 2 years, right? Cash flows down the line, you get your 21, and you would now say again, you'll have to do some guessing down here for the carry forward of the net loss from the first year, right? So guess some numbers in the third and fourth column. In other words, since units went up from 150 to, we should really copy this and put it up down, because we're using this as the basis to now make logical guesses if we did not work these last 2 columns, right? So let's say we ignore these 2 columns if we didn't do it. Said in sales units moving from 150 to 480, and we worked through all of the second column, seeing that we have in profits there. 480 almost doubling, and look at that, 21 practically double to 45, and then dropping back down to a similar level to 480. 45 dropped down, not exactly to 21, dropped a little further because 360 is less than 480. So this is your guide that you can use to simply guess these final 2 values here. Are we following this sort of logic there, ladies? Right? So without having worked all of this, and you force yourself to work 2 columns down the line, and you just follow the numbers, and the third column has to be the biggest net profit, and the fourth column is a little less than the second column. And that's exactly what these net profit values are showing, right? So that way you could avoid all of the stress and at least show the examiner that within each working, you're still doing each working, but you're not doing all of the years in each working. So you're showing the examiner you know what the adjustments are to get to the sales in trillions, but you didn't have to do it a third time and a fourth time, right? And in that way, these are things I would want to illustrate in the study school to make sure that we can do something logical, something that you can finish in the exam. And of course, you must be prepared with your theory to gain as maximum marks as you can from the theory. And that, ladies, is how you're going to pass. Now, how are you going to get theory between now and the exam? We don't have time to read the textbook anymore. So at this time, you have the summary notes, the what we call them that we use in class, taught course notes, not so bad. But there's also, I think I loaded on the Moodle already. There is the revision notes, there is the slides, and there are technical articles online. Now, the technical articles kind of lengthy, but please be reading your summaries, either from the course notes or from the other bits which I've posted online. All right, so please access those and read your summaries over and over and over. If you have used your little pass cards, read those over and over. You must be reading those at least twice a week. Coming down to the last week before the exam, you should be reading something like a pass card or the summary, which I have uploaded on the Moodle every single day for the last week. And that's where something from the theory will stick. And you'll have something to write for every single part of every single question. All right, ladies, any queries as we close on this revision note? Is everybody good for tonight? All right, make sure. And I will see you all Monday again when we will attack that next NPV question in trying to cover this NPV area. So if again we did 2014 June, we just finished December 14. The next question we'll look at is the June 15 paper and see what that paper tested in NPV. All right, so good night, take care. Thank you all for coming out. Keep studying, put pressure on it. That's the only way we're going to pass. If we don't put pressure on it, the news wouldn't be so good next year. All right, keep working. See you all Monday. Good night.